What's next after discussing all of the best? Gotta get into the low points, don't I? So we did the whole playlist on the best from each franchise. Why not get into some of the less successful periods of each team's existence? So I thought this would be kind of interesting to look at, and we'll start with the Ducks. I'll do this one alphabetically as well. So for fans at the end of the alphabet, like Vancouver, Washington, whatnot, you guys are probably going to be like, it's fine. You guys can save us till the end. That's fine. So we're getting into the struggles. And some of these numbers aren't going to be indicative of bad players as much as just the teams in front of them, that kind of thing. And then there's something fun I've tacked onto the end of this because why not? So the most losses of any goaltender in Anaheim Ducks history is Guy Hebert with 202. Those are regulation losses. So in this, we'll be looking at regulation losses, 202 for Hebert, who of course was their goaltender coming out of expansion, and he was pretty darn good. Another thing I want to do with this series is make sure I'm wearing a jersey that people might look at and go either not remember a team necessarily wore that or may not like. May say it's not a very attractive looking jersey. So yeah, that's why I picked this one, because this is one that's kind of easy to forget from between the original Ducks and then when they, the original Mighty Ducks and when they became the Ducks later on. These jerseys were in between. So yeah, Hebert all-time on the losses list. Now, lost asset is something I was looking at, and I thought, if I'm going to do a list, lost assets are important. Now, there's two ways to look at this. Either players who were drafted by a team and then became a star somewhere else, like Cam Neely going from Vancouver to Boston kind of thing. Or in this case, I went with Paul Kariya. Here's why. He has 669 career points for Anaheim, and of course, he went through his concussions and all of that. To me, the lost asset when it comes to Paul Kariya is that full-length career, him having that full career in Anaheim, and him lifting the Stanley Cup in 2007. That, to me, is one thing with the Ducks that, I genuinely feel bad about that Kariya was not a part of that 2007 Stanley Cup winning Ducks team. As much as I may not have been a fan of the Ducks at that time, and I really wasn't, Paul Kariya not being there, it was too bad. Short-term coaches. Now, these will often be interns when we're looking at this, but I don't want to get into the fancy part of it of, well, he was technically an intern, so you can't count him. So Bob Murray, who was interim, of course, as general manager, 14 and 11 and 1 under Bob Murray. And it felt like, I said Bill Murray. Well, not Bill Murray. Bob Murray. The interesting thing with that, of course, was he's the general manager, so the players seem to get a little bit better with the boss behind him. Guy Chiron, 2001, he had a record of 14, 26, 7, and 2 before he was let go. And again, we'll often see interim guys, but I thought I'd put up their record and the shortest term coaches that each team has had. And I may do 2 for each team. We'll see. Now, not in the Hall. So you're going to see this listing on every team, and here's what I did. I looked at their career points list and their all-time wins lists and said, okay, the top guy in terms of points for the team, the top goaltender when it comes to wins that are not currently in the Hall of Fame, because it's an interesting conversation to have. Steve Ruchin is the highest rated, not active player when it comes to not being in the Hall of Fame. So yes, Getzlaf and Perry are both not in the Hall of Fame, but they're active players. So, and they're obviously not eligible for the Hall of Fame. So I don't want this to get too tricky here. A guy has to have been retired and eligible. So if a guy's pretty good, like, I don't know, Solani or Kariya, they're in the Hall of Fame. Ruchin's not. He's not going to end up there, but he was a decent enough player to at some point get a career video from me. And J.S. Shiger, you could make an argument for J.S. Shiger for the Hall of Fame. I think that argument's out there to be made. There are certain goaltenders. I've talked about Cujo. I've talked about Moog. I've talked about Osgood. You can throw Shiger in there as one of those guys who's pretty darn good and had some hardware as well, which would indicate, yeah, you could argue him into the Hall. But again, for Shiger, he's not there. Now, the longest drought this team has had, 3 years. That's not bad, considering 94 to 96, that was through expansion. Their expansion years, 93, 94. And 2000 to 2002, they missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. So it would appear they were on the verge of missing the playoffs for the second straight season at the pause. But this is a team that does not stay down for long. So if we go through an extended rebuild, and if this team misses the playoffs for 4 years in a row, that'll be a first. Which makes you think Anaheim's kind of been spoiled a little bit. kind of, sort of. Only the one Stanley Cup, but it's still one more than the team that's down the road from me here. Now, in year one, the team in 93-94 had a record of 33-46-5, which was 71 points. Year 11, and I thought this was an interesting way of looking at it too. So 10 years later, how much further along are they than in their expansion year? Ignore what happens in between. It's just an interesting thing to look at. 29, 35, 10, and 8 for 76 points in 03-04. So 10 years later, and they were 5 points better. Yes, they made the playoffs in between. I just thought it was something fun to look at. Lowest point percentage against Vegas. They have a winning percentage of .250. That's not great. But against Toronto, they have a winning percentage of .370. So again, with Vegas on this playlist, I feel that's too small of a sample size. So when Vegas shows up, and they're going to show up for other teams as well, I will include another team. Now, goals for per game, they've scored 2.00 against Vegas. They've only scored 2.31 against Dallas, which would include games against Minnesota before Minnesota goes to Dallas. So overall, because I'm thinking of which year, actually, they would not have. Dallas's first year in Dallas, carry the one denominator, they would never have played the Minnesota North Stars. So, yeah, Dallas. Goals against per game, they have the worst record against Vegas. What a surprise. 3.75 goals against per game. So all along the board here, they don't like playing Vegas. Against Toronto, they've allowed 3.26 goals per game. So they don't have a tremendous record against Toronto either. So I thought that was an interesting one to look at. And then when we look at lowest points per game, and this is lowest points per game, minimum 100 games played. So we're not going to include anybody who's played less than 100 games. Lowest save percentage, goaltender has to have played 50 games to qualify. Stu Grimson, no surprise there, .056 points per game. Kurt Sauer, defenseman, .059. Jorge Paros, known more for the fisticuffs, and we're going to see a lot of enforcers on this list. .079 points per game for Paros. Mike Brown, also an enforcer, .097, and Kevin Haller, a defenseman, .101 points per game. And again, has to have played 100 games or more. Goaltenders, they have to have played 50 games or more. Stalenkov leads the way with an .897 as the lowest save percentage for any goaltender that's played 50 or more games. I like Stalenkov, but again, the numbers don't bear up. Dominic Roussel, .902, and Ilya Brizgalov, who, of course, got waived and moved along. .904 save percentage. So I'm going to have 3 goaltenders on these lists and 5 players and leave it at that. And then just for fun, goalie with the best name, Eero Tarkki. So that's the most fun name, and it's the best name among the goaltenders. And again, this isn't scientific or anything. This is just for me. That's the best name of the bunch. Eero Tarkki. He only played 1 game for Anaheim. And his save percentage, not fantastic. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, goaltenders often have really fun names, so you got to include them in the list. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and yeah, just an easy, quick little series we can get going, starting with Anaheim and moving on through other teams tomorrow. Some videos might take longer. Some videos may not. We'll see. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always, and I will talk to you again soon.